It is one of the most historically significant skyscrapers in the financial district of Lower Manhattan. It is a landmark being reborn again after a dramatic and elaborate renovation spanning the past 8 years. And it is a project that cost one of New York's largest developers over $2 billion to complete. This is One Wall Street. Formerly an office building serving some of the largest American banks dating back to the 20th century, this 1.2 million square foot tower has officially been converted into condos for people to live in. A condo conversion like One Wall Street is unlike anything that Manhattan has ever seen before, and with the project in its final phase of construction, it's making headlines yet again. In today's episode, we are going to dive into the history of this amazing building, One Wall Street. We'll get into the details of the conversion project that the developer has spent the past 8 years working on. And last, we'll talk about the condos that are now being offered for sale in this newly converted building. As you might expect, One Wall Street, which is also known as the Irvine Trust Building and the Bank of New York Building, is a high-rise building that was built in 1931, located in Lower Manhattan in the financial district. There are actually two sections to the building, with the original section standing 50 stories tall, and the smaller 36-story section to the south being built later on in 1965. Back when One Wall Street was built, it fell into the Art Deco style of architecture and time period, which you can find all over New York in both residential and commercial towers to this day. Art Deco style buildings have sculptural elements, they have decorated spandrels, and they feature exterior details that exaggerate the height of the buildings, since this is around the time when the New York City zoning would allow for taller structures to be built. There are about 30 buildings within New York City that are landmarked to be Art Deco, with many of those landing on the National Register of Historic Places. Some of the most notable names on the list are the Rockefeller Center, the Radio City Music Hall, the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, and of course the subject of today's video, One Wall Street. Speaking of One Wall Street, the Landmark Preservation Commission describes it as one of New York City's most extraordinary Art Deco masterpieces designed by renowned architect Ralph Walker. And they say that Walker created a distinctive corporate symbol for the original bank tenant and a strongly vertical structure with multiple setbacks leading to a narrow tower topped by faceted crystalline roof forms. Looking at some of the old black and white photos from Carl Foster in this report, you'll see that this building does really have a powerful and dominant presence no matter what angle you're looking at it from, whether that's from the Broadway view or the Wall Street view. And after I visited New York a few months back, I've got to say, these types of buildings really do stand out as something special when you're walking around with their window details, their roof details, those masses of limestone, and the grand entrances. So One Wall Street was occupied by Irvine Trust, the Bank of New York, and the Bank of New York Mellon over its lifetime from 1931 to 2014. But when the Bank of New York Mellon was looking to get out of their corporate headquarters in favor of a smaller footprint, it was time to sell this iconic building. By May of 2014, the Bank of New York Mellon reached a deal to sell the One Wall Street Tower to Macklowe for $585 million. And as far as Macklowe as the buyer and the developer, this made for a great acquisition because at the time they were, and they still are to this day, one of the biggest real estate developers in New York City. Before the head of Macklowe even closed on this property, he was already drafting up a business plan to convert this thing into condos for people to live in. The Real Deal dug up an incredible document from March 25th, 2014 that was written by Harry Macklowe himself when he was in the planning phase of the One Wall Street conversion. Simply titled Business Plan, Harry started by saying to convert the North Tower and South Tower to a combination of high-end residential condominiums, high-end residential rentals, and create 100,000 square feet of retail, including movie theaters, a food court, a health club, a pool, restaurants, a library, rooftop outdoor space, and public space. He says that due to its unique configuration and size, One Wall Street is physically suited to this conversion. Then he goes on to talk about considerations around elevators, ceiling height, window placement, and views in every direction. Harry Macklowe was 77 years old when he he wrote up that proposal. So even though he's getting up there in age, he still has incredible talent and vision. And another thing too, the fact that Harry has been developing multi-billion-dollar projects just like this one for 60 years now, but he still scribbles out his business plan on pen and paper is pretty incredible. Anyways, by 2016, the plan was revised a bit in favor of a build-out that would be less expensive, and Macklowe changed the plans up to say that the conversion project would instead consist of mainly condominiums when it was finished, with retail space at the base. The team for a project of this caliber is very important, and that consisted of Macklowe as the developer, which we've already established. The architect is another important one, especially on a historic building like this, and that was SLCE Architects. The bank is a big one because these developers don't fund deals like this themselves. Deutsche Bank came in on this deal and funded it with $750 million. And last is a partner. It turns out on this deal, Macklowe needed to bring in a partner in order to be able to afford to build out the project and mitigate a little bit of his risk. His partner was the former Prime Minister of Qatar, whose name was Hamad bin Jassim. Converting a building like this is no easy task because you have to think that it was previously used as office space, so the layout of every floor is going to be a bunch of offices and cubicles and public restrooms and things like that. Well, when you're building an apartment building, the building layout, the floor plans, the wall placement, the elevator placement, and the amenities are all going to be very different. Not to mention on top of that, the construction and the engineering criteria is very different whether you're building residential or commercial. So at One Wall Street, not only did Macklowe have to deal with everything that we just talked about, but they also had to deal with the fact that this was considered a historic building, so they had to adhere to those guidelines as well. After years of construction, doing things like moving elevators, removing escalators, restoring some historical elements, and rearranging the floor plans, the One Wall Street conversion is finally nearing completion. Before putting the condos up for sale, some of the lower floors were already securing tenants under retail leases. A 44,000 square foot lease was signed at this building with Whole Foods in 2014, which made for the first commercial tenant of the building. Then in 2017, Lifetime Fitness signed a lease to occupy another 74,000 square feet on the first 4 floors of the building, which made for Lifetime's second fitness center in Manhattan. With those 2 leases in place, that leaves for about 35,000 square feet of space that's still available to future retail tenants. As far as the condos are concerned, there are 566 units for sale across the 51 floors, and many of them have recently been made available. Scanning One Wall Street's webpage, there is a ton of material on the history of the building, which we've already covered, but the residences section describes living here as timelessly beautiful, stating that each home will offer exhilarating living with layouts conceived for entertaining needs and views out to the Statue of Liberty or to the Hudson River. They say that the living rooms are tranquil and grand, elevating everyday needs and entertaining occasions. Then they go on to give some more comments about the views. And regarding the details, the interiors are thankfully inspired by the original building's ambition, with 10-foot ceilings, fluted bay windows, and carefully chosen materials. You can see here in the kitchen they are using Calcutta honed marble and ribbed lacquered cabinetry, which is really cool look. And I read somewhere else actually that Macklowe himself personally was involved in the finish choices here in the kitchens. Last, looking at the bathrooms, they feature stone tones and serene marble finishes with a timeless clean style, more marble and white lacquer cabinets, and space for bathtubs in some units. Obviously, a lot of what we just looked at is just fancy marketing language to make the units sound even cooler than they really are, but I've gotta say, this is a pretty nice finish package for a building with 566 total units. Moving on to the availability page here, this shows the current units available that the Compass real estate team is offering. They have studio residences on the 6th and 7th floor right now, asking between $1.1 and $1.5 million. The 1-bedroom units are ranging from $1.4 to $2.1 million. There are a ton of 2-bedroom units available. Those ones are probably one of their more popular units, and those prices range anywhere from $2.3 million all the way up to $4.35 million. A 3-bedroom unit in this building will set you back anywhere between $3.8 and $9.3 million, and they're only showing one 4-bedroom unit available at this time, which they're asking almost $13 million for. Now, I did a lot of digging, and it seems like both the real estate agents and the developers are being pretty quiet in regards to how many units in this building have sold so far. Macklowe was even questioned in an interview a few weeks back, and he was asked about how many apartments had sold, and he responded just with, "We're in no hurry." The author of that article went on to note that the financial district has more than 14 1,300 units available just in that district alone, which makes for the most oversupplied neighborhood in Manhattan. But going back to the floor plans really quick, I'm just gonna say that if I wanted to live here, this unit right here seems like the best bargain of the bunch. It's one of the smaller 3-bedroom units at only 1,500 square feet, but it's on the 23rd floor, so it should have good views, and check out the price compared to these other 3-bedroom units. The floor plan isn't all that bad either. You walk through this kind of long foyer before opening up to your nice sized great room and kitchen. By that front door, you have your primary bedroom with an ensuite bath and a good sized walk-in closet. In the middle here, you have bedroom number 2. No bathroom on this one, but that's okay. You could just use this room as your office. And then bedroom number 3 down here is facing south, which also has its own ensuite bath. 3.8 million bucks is a big price, but it seems like a bargain when you compare it to the other units that are available here. The most recent headlines about this building are of course in part that the condos are finally being listed and marketed for sale, but the developer Macklowe is also in the process of seeking a $1.1 billion refinance loan to pay off the construction debt that he has taken on so far, plus fund the rest of the project. Refinancing your debt in construction is pretty common practice, especially on a project of this size. It's a good move if you need a lower interest rate, you need more money, or just if your loan is coming close to its maturity date. Apparently, this $1.1 billion loan request is at a 48% loan to cost ratio, which means that at this point, Macklowe has sunk nearly $2.3 billion into this massive conversion project. The most I've ever gone into debt on a single project is a few $1,000,000. I cannot imagine spending several $1 billion on one deal. My math tells me that Macklowe's going to do all right on this one yet again though. Those condos that we were just looking at were selling anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 per square foot, which means that he should bring in somewhere around $3 billion once this place sells out. If you enjoyed the episode today, guys, hit that thumbs up button down below before you go. That really helps me out a lot. And I say it every time, but remember to hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, because I'm putting new videos out every week. But that's all I've got for you guys this time. So until next time, see ya.